Welcome to the demo for Serene. Serene is a physics-based action puzzler named after one of the main characters in the game, an AI by the name of Serene. In Serene, you play as Tech 17, who is a test subject on this ship testing out a jetpack, and really your main goal is just to get back to your home. You're not sure how you got to the ship, you're not sure what's going on, but as you move through the story, it's explained to you through dialogue with Serene and through things you discover as you move along. So as you can see on your screen right now is the first level, and actually this first attempt will be unsuccessful. So as we watch through it, we'll look at what you see on the status bar here. So on the top left, the orange bar is fuel. That number is displayed in seconds for how long you have left to fire your jetpack. The blue bar is your oxygen bar, which is essentially a level timer. Once it runs out, you just lose. And on the right, the black box with text in it, that's our dialogue box. That's how Serene, the ship's AI, will communicate with you as you move throughout the game. So she'll explain to you story points, and she'll explain to you how the game works. So the controls for Serene are pretty simple. You use left and right arrow keys to rotate Tech 17 and space to fire your jetpack. So this second attempt at level 1 will actually be successful because the player is taking advantage of the physics system in the game by using his momentum. So when he fires his jetpack, he's not continuing to fire it all the time. He is waiting and using his forward momentum to carry him as far as possible before using more fuel. The second level demonstrates the use of fans in this game, at least in a very simple case. Fans provide a force away from where the fan sprite is. There are varying levels of force to the fans, which are indicated by the speed at which the particles coming from the fan are moving. So that is how the player will be able to judge the force of each individual fan. Level 3 is another fan-based level. We haven't introduced any new mechanics yet, but at this point the fans are a little more difficult. You can't just really fly through in a straight line. You have to think a little bit more about your pathing, or at least your fuel usage, because this kind of circle of fans in the middle of the room you actually can get trapped in if you don't move through it at a reasonable speed. But once you are through that part of the level, the fans will pretty much push you to the end. It's just a question of whether or not you have enough fuel to reach the Level 4 introduces lethal walls, which are shown here as laser walls, and immediately upon touching one, you die. So you have to be very careful in this level to make sure that the only part of the laser walls that you touch is the base, because if you actually touch the laser part, again, it's an instant loss. Level 5 takes a similar concept to Level 4, but in this case, the fans off to the left and right here are actually pushing you towards this center laser. So you have to make sure you're using your fuel to head toward the left, and then once you're past the middle point, to the right, but you can't go too far or you'll run into those laser walls. So this level is basically an exercise in fuel management, and it's a really important level for getting a feel for how much fuel you need to use in the game. Level 6 introduces shock boxes to the game, which are essentially open electrical components that Tech 17 needs to avoid, because if he touches one, he'll be electrocuted. They're similar in terms of how they work to the laser walls, but they have a different form factor, and there's no end cap that you can use to bounce off of. So you just have to be very careful to completely avoid these obstacles. And in this level, it's pretty difficult because you have to use the walls to bounce off in order to stop your momentum. So this is an example of where puzzle mechanics come into the gameplay. That's something that's not immediately intuitive, but after you've tried the level maybe a few times, you'll realize, okay, I actually need to slow myself down. I can't just fly straight through these holes between the shock boxes. Level 7 is primarily a story level, but it does use all of the mechanics in the game up to this point, so fans, lasers, and shock boxes. The hardest part of this level is making sure that this fan here does not push you into the shock box off to the right. You have to make sure that Tech 17 stops before he gets there. Now, the reason this level is important to the story is because it shows that Tech 17 is not the first person who's gone through these experiments, hence the number 17. So the people displayed here have gone through similar trials before, but did not make it off the ship. And as you can see in this level, Tech 17 again uses his body to stop his momentum, which is something that we think players will learn over time is actually pretty important in certain levels of this game. Level 8 introduces another new mechanic, black holes, to the game. So you can see them here used in conjunction with lasers and shock boxes. And black holes are pretty much what you'd expect. They pull you in toward the center of them, and the different sizes of black holes indicate different radii of effect. So the larger black holes will have an effect on you from a larger distance away, and they also could have different strengths of force. And in this level, you have to be really careful not to get too close to one of the black holes, or it'll suck you in and you won't be able to escape, as you'll see demonstrated here. So you have to be very careful and go in between them. Level 9 again uses the black hole, but in this case it's really just a distraction from the actual level, because these fans on the bottom right of the screen can actually carry you across the screen. You just have to make sure to fire in the opposite direction of them. So the fan on the bottom left will push you up toward the exit without you hitting the laser on the left side. This shows that we don't always use all the mechanics in each level, and that sometimes pieces of the level are actually just decoys. Level 10 takes all the mechanics that we've seen in the game thus far and combines them by using discrete rooms, each of which use primarily one mechanic that we've shown in the game. So this first top room here that you can see we're going through actually uses small black holes, so you have to power through really quickly or you'll get stuck. You won't be able to escape the force of the black hole once you lose your momentum. This second left vertical room is a fan that pushes you into a laser if you're not careful, so again you'll see you have to use your body to get into the room successfully. And the third room uses shock boxes in a pretty simple way. It just constricts your movement. You have to be very careful and controlled. Once you enter the final room with the lasers in it, there are fans that are pushing you toward the lasers, so you have to be careful to avoid that and conserve fuel. It's definitely important to go on a diagonal angle here, because if you try to fly directly into the fans, you'll run out of fuel before you can reach the end of the level. Level 11 is yet another story-focused level in which Serene has actually designed the room to look like a sad face, because she's pretty upset in this scene, and this level is just really combining all the mechanics again, making sure that the player understands how everything works, and it's pretty skill intensive. You have to make sure that you have full control over Tech 17 or you won't be able to make it to the exit. And again, fuel conservation is a core mechanic of our game, so we make sure that the player has a relatively small amount of fuel, just enough to finish the level usually, so that you actually do have to conserve fuel. Level 12 is our final level, and in this level, Serene is basically just saying goodbye to the player. This level is relatively simple mechanically, pretty similar to one of the earlier levels, in which you have to use a black hole as a slingshot to shoot you toward the exit, which you'll see here. You have very little fuel, so it might take a few tries to get this one right, but it's not that long of a level. that concludes our demo for Serene, and thank you very much for watching.